What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Honestly, this one had some potential, but it just turned out to be another chicken heel title reign that didn't help anyone. Well, except Goldberg. KO and Chris Jericho were the iconic duo, no pun intended. The problem I have with this title reign is that it isn't memorable barring the title victory and the title loss. Sure, there were some matches here and there, but the thing everyone remembers is Jericho's brilliant character change and his relationship with KO, not the title reign itself. Like, let me give you an example. We all remember Stone Cold Steve Austin's first title reign, right? We remember his battles against Kane, Vince, Dude Love, Undertaker, all that. But for KO, we don't remember the battles and the trials and tribulations he had to go through. We just remember his thing with Chris Jericho. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm just saying. Like, title reign itself, it's not really that memorable. And it's not his fault, it's the damn booking once again. Anyways, let's get into it. Now it goes without saying, but that damn title is cursed. When you look at the history of the belt, you think of bad moments. Brock Lesnar holding the title hostage, Goldberg, Finn's injury, and at this point I wonder, why the hell didn't they bring back the World Championship? I can't give you that many great moments from it. There is, obviously, but the bad outweigh the good, that's what I'm trying to say. And they were better off bringing the World Championship back. With that said, Jericho and Owens' relationship grew before that draft. They often teamed up, and I gotta mention this one, Goat and Donkey. That was pretty fun, and they were on pretty good terms. Sure, there was that time KO stole Jericho's scarf, but they were still on the same page. The partnership, though, it officially began in August of 2016. Chris Jericho at this point was once again one of the best things in WWE. It kind of came as a shocker because at the beginning of the year, it seemed like Y2J was clinging on to his outdated character. He began adopting a whole different character, wearing a scarf, lying about Appleton, and eventually he brought in a clipboard. This clipboard features a bunch of wrestlers and non-wrestlers' name, and it was the list of Jericho. He called everyone stupid idiots, and you could see that Jericho really enjoyed himself out there. KO wanted to join Jericho in fighting Enzo and Cass. They beat him at SummerSlam, and the match itself, it was hilarious. The duo clicked. Their in-ring actions were second to none. They had a cool-ass tag team finisher, and it seemed like there was potential in a Jericho team. The next night on Raw, Finn Balor, the first Universal Champion, relinquished the title. This really came off as a shocker because Balor finished his match the previous night and it seemed like he was good. He had so much momentum at that point, but it all came crashing down. What this meant was an opportunity arose for Kevin Owens. He managed to qualify for the Fatal 4-Way title match, and one thing to note is that Jericho kind of helped KO win because Neville wasted his time dealing with outside interference. Heading into the match, Kevin was really confident. Jericho himself was sure that he's going to beat Roman Reigns in order to qualify. They started to speak about the title match and how they'll help each other. Jericho was very confident that Roman's going to get it, and about that, Roman didn't get it. Despite Owens' interference, it wasn't enough for a Y2J victory. Now, about the title match, Triple H interfered and he was ready to hand the title to Seth Rollins. Now, my mindset 4 years ago was that Rollins is turning face, and that's what happened. It doesn't take away from the moment, though. It was still shocking to see because Triple H was on Seth's side for 2 years at that point. It was Kevin Owens, his other project, who won. Like I said, despite the movement being expected, it was still cool. Like, Rollins is a good guy. It was something I've wanted to see since 2015, and it was finally going to happen. Owens was shocked as anyone. He didn't know what's going on, and he scrambled to get the cover. Now, did KO deserve to win the title? Hell yeah. He worked for 15 years to get to this point. He had the mic skills, he had the in-ring talent, so all was good with KO as champion. And at this point, I believe expectations were high for a Kevin Owens title reign. And another thing to mention is that Finn's injury was a shocker, so they had to do something quick. Roman was the most hated person at this point, Seth was turning to a good guy, and Big Cass wasn't at that level. So that left only one person, Kevin Owens. The fans loudly chanted, "You deserve it," as Raw went off the air. I gotta mention it once again, he really sold that moment Triple H pedigreed Rollins. So now it was the dawning of a new era, the Kevin Owens era. On the September 5th, 2016 episode of Raw, Kevin Owens decided to celebrate his title victory in style. The fans once again chanted, "You deserve it," and Owens agreed with the fans before telling them that he doesn't need a crowd full of idiots hijacking his moments, and chanting "You deserve it" accomplishes nothing but making them feel good for themselves. Owens said that he's known he's deserved it, and he doesn't need anyone telling him that. He was thankful of Triple H coming in and finishing the job. He literally said Triple H did the last 2% of the work. And he announced that Raw from now on is known as the Kevin Owens Show. Then Seth Rollins interrupted. From here on, KO was the third wheel because Seth was shouting at Stephanie. That's a story for another day, but Kevin Owens managed to push Rollins' buttons, and so he received an ass kicking. He called Rollins an architect that makes blueprints for failure, and that's what got his ass beat. Seth then got suspended before Mick Foley vetoed it and handed the Architect a title match against Kevin Owens for Clash of the Champions. Now, it was around this time period where KO and Jericho's relationship continued to grow. They were funny and entertaining, and the gift of Jericho just kept on giving. Over the next couple of weeks, KO continued to win matches, but these victories were results of outside interference. He beat Roman and then Seth at the pay-per-view when Chris Jericho interfered. It wasn't Y2J exactly that got KO the win, but he certainly influenced the result. At this point, Jericho himself debuted a list, and he believed everyone was against him, and so anyone that got on his nerves, they're written on the clipboard. I felt like Chris Jericho started to overshadow KO. It's not that Owens sucked or anything, it's just that Y2J was just too talented. The list, it's everything. Owens is credited for this duo working also, but Jericho was the standout in my opinion. And it's also crazy to me how Jericho could just click a pen and hold a damn clipboard and make it so damn popular. Like I said a long time ago, if he was given a USB, hell, even if he was given a router, he'd make it over. Throughout October, Jericho continued to take the beatings while KO ran away. Slowly, tensions began to rise after both men miscommunicated, and Y2J eventually refused to be Owens' lackey, and he refused to be treated as such. Then, the worst thing happened to Chris Jericho. On the October 24th, 2016 episode of Raw, Chris Jericho walked to the ring in a state of disappointment. The reason? First of all, a triple threat match between himself, KO, and Seth Rollins was canceled due to this. Why? Well, it was because his list was missing. Kevin Owens then came out and he denied having stolen the list, and he even said that he doesn't care about the list. But since he cares about Jericho, he'll go and search for it with him. Then there was friction between the two because Jericho believed the list was way more important than the main event. Stephanie interrupted and she promised to get the list back for Jericho. Despite this, Jericho was shouting at her. She told him to stop being ridiculous. He's complaining, my list, my list, my list. He's going ballistic when Seth interrupted. He was clearly hiding something behind his back and Jericho was going nuts. Seth announced that he's found the list, and this whole thing, it was like something from elementary school, like, he stole my list, there he is, he's got it. Seth then revealed that KO was on the list himself. Jericho denied this, stating that such an honorable and noble man like Kevin Owens would never be on the list. He then demanded that Rollins deliver him the list right now. Also, I gotta mention that Jericho seemed so damn deranged over a clipboard. It meant so damn much to him. Seth was okay with handing back the list, but before he did, the Architect sent a little message to the Universal Champion. He let him know that he's inside Hell in a Cell, and he promised to kick KO's teeth so far down his throat that he's going to have a hard time puckering up to kiss Stephanie and Triple H's ass. Seth was ready to take the title and burn down the establishment, that's what he said. And if Jericho wanted his list, he should come and get it. Later on, Chris Jericho was going crazy searching for the list. He's getting offered Puerto Rico trips. He's getting taught inner peace by Jinder Mahal. But Jericho wasn't having it. You know, the whole money thing. He's saying stupid idiot. He's just too damn good. The segments Jericho had this night were fun. Later on, he's thanking this guy for finding the list. But then he realized that the list was in the wrong hands. It was in Braun Strowman's hands. He asked back for it in a respectful manner. And the moment the list was back in his hands, it's like Jericho was brought back to life. And his confidence was back. And after Strowman left, Jericho put him on the list for touching his personal property. As for the main event, Jericho did work as a cohesive unit until Rollins caught them off guard and bested both of them at the same time. Like sore losers, they assaulted the Architect. This attack worked in Owens' favor because he powerbombed Rollins on the apron, and it showed that KO is certainly capable of fighting his own battles. That's what it was. Like for the past few weeks, Owens was a chicken basically. This segment proved that if he really wanted to, he could actually win his matches without any external help. As for their Hell in a Cell match, not bad. It showed Kevin was remorseless. He was hell-bent on destroying Rollins' back, delivering cannonballs, Irish whips, and it was NXT Kevin Owens. That's what it was. But then KO took this bump and damn. The Architect began his comeback, but KO was there with a fire extinguisher. He accidentally used it on the ref, and this opened way for Jericho to run in there and lock the door. It seemed like homecoming for the champ. Jericho's interference didn't initially work out. Rollins had momentum on his side. He had the match won at one point, but Jericho pulled the ref from out of there. He was punished, but the sacrifice benefited Kevin Owens greatly. He hit the pop-up powerbomb, used a chair to punish the Architect, and despite Rollins fighting back once again, he managed to cancel the Architect's plans with a DDT on the chair before wrapping it up with a powerbomb on 2 chairs to retain the title. Story of the match, KO needed Jericho's help. Now, the match itself was fun. I gotta say that the match really enjoyable, and it's probably an overlooked cell match. From the past 10 years, I think this is pretty overlooked, to be honest. Following Hell in a Cell, the issues between Kevin and Chris began to grow. Despite being best friends and teaming up at Survivor Series, well, there was issues. But during the build-up to the match, it was all good. Even the night of the pay-per-view, they were on great terms. They called out Tom Phillips on his tablet password, which was 6969, by the way. And seriously, though, this segment was funny. Why? They trashed Tom at any and every moment. I suggest you watch it if you haven't, as these segments made it seem like they were great friends since childhood. They knew and complimented each other very well, and the duo was so damn efficient in making memorable segments such as this. And by the way, this was on a pre-show. But it's one of the first things I think of when I hear Jericho. They called Tom a bully, a pervert, prejudice against colors. Highly recommended. Okay, so later that night, SmackDown vs. Raw. KO and Jericho batted for each other during the match, but later on, Kevin blasted AJ Styles with a list, which enraged Jericho. This ended up eliminating both he and Chris Jericho. He was eliminated because he was disqualified, and Jericho was eliminated because he was losing focus of the match, and he got an RKO. The next night on Raw, a very disappointed Y2J entered the arena. Charlie Caruso asked him about the loss from last night, and he answered, stating that Team Raw fell apart when the list of Jericho was used as a weapon, and later on, he's going to tell the entire world who's to blame for this. Anyways, during that segment, Jericho's discussing this dark topic when Kevin Owens interrupted. He explained things. He showed stills of Survivor Series and how AJ was looking to hit the Styles Clash. By the way, he's calling the production team monkeys. Then he explained how he saved Y2J using the list because he's his best friend. Jericho questioned KO's statements and the crowd was ready. They realized that he was going to turn into a good guy once again. The 6-time world champion was clearly distraught over the list, yet Owens showed no remorse over the fact that he exposed Jericho's darkest secrets to the world, although no one actually seen them. He claimed he saved Jericho, he got disqualified for this, but it didn't matter because he saved his best friend. During all of this, he's shouting, "Monkeys!" He's referring to the production truck once again, and the champion considered this a waste of an opportunity and the end of their friendship. Owens said that Y2J failed to capitalize on the chance, and Chris Jericho himself was fed up with Owens. He said that he was always there for KO, yet he never returns the favor himself. He then threatened to reveal who's responsible for the loss. KO was ready for the big reveal. They argued for a couple of seconds before Jericho shouted that he's finished with Owens. The 6-time champion then responded, stating that he does know who's responsible for this. They then shouted Roman Reigns at the same time, and they were reunited. They were back together. I remember this moment watching it back in 2016, man. The ridiculous stuff both of these guys were saying during this segment, it just got me. The moment they hugged, what can I say? KO believed that Roman wasn't helping. He said that he's standing there with his hair condition dripping, and it was also Seth Rollins' fault. Then the architect himself interrupted, Kevin shouting, "You're giving me a headache." And the small things he did during this segment, once again, hilarious. Seth then challenged KO to a title match, and he had the right to because he was promised something for having to put up with these two stupid idiots. He then fought both of them before Roman made the save. Mick Foley then came out, and he did grant Seth his title opportunity for later that night. And the stipulation is that Kevin Owens' buddy, Chris Jericho, is barred for ringside. As for that match, it was fun. Rollins was doing some crazy stuff, and it wasn't entirely out of the realm for him to win the title that night. But then Sin Cara got involved, and he attacked. Rollins, though, revealed that it was Jericho, and technically, he followed the rules, the protocol. He wasn't at ringside. Until that happened. KO, though, capitalized on this by hitting the apron powerbomb, and he retained the title. Story of this one, Rollins had the title in his sights, but it was Jericho, Kevin's best friend, that made the save once again. Despite the victory, actual problems arise between Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. After Roman Reigns called him a fake champion, Kevin was pissed. Then he told Jericho to shut up during the segment, and he claimed he didn't need him. Y2J took offense to this, and Kevin, he agreed with Roman. Every time Jericho comes out, it proves that he is unable to successfully defend the title on his own. And after hearing his best friend state this stuff, Jericho left. He addressed this later that night, saying that he believed Kevin was his best friend, but now he isn't so sure. As he walked to the parking lot, his driver dropped his list. He's shouting at him stuff, and all of a sudden, Seth Rollins appeared from out of nowhere. He made Jericho look like a stupid idiot, and he assaulted him. This culminated in a pedigree on top of a vehicle. Little side note, looking back, I hated the pedigree. It just didn't fit Rollins in my opinion. As for KO, he lost his match against Roman Reigns, proving that what Roman said earlier may have been true. Eventually, KO realized that maybe, just maybe, he needs Chris Jericho. He tried convincing him to get back on his side, and it seemed like Jericho was disappointed and done with Kevin Owens. They were booked to tag with one another against Rollins and Reigns in the New Day for the titles, but both men were clearly not on the same page. They miscommunicated with one another during the match, and this cost him the titles. And seeing as he was in need of his so-called best friend, Owens tried helping Y2J in his match against Rollins. Jericho didn't need help, and this distraction basically cost him at the pay-per-view. Owens also tried offering gifts, and nothing really worked out. But during the title match against Roman Reigns at Roadblock, Chris Jericho finally responded to the question, "Are you with me?" He hit the code breaker on Owens, showing his true colors, or did he? Well, it was proven to be an effective tactic as Owens retained the title. Once he recovered, Jericho hugged him. Owens was shocked, and they were back together once again. But Roman and Rollins had something to say about this. Both men punished the treacherous duo by sending them through announce tables. And look at that grin on Roman's face. Okay, so now it was proven that their friendship between the two was tighter than ever, so Mick Foley decided to lock Chris Jericho in a shark cage. Why? Because every title defense Owens had, Jericho one way or another was involved. So this was a way of not only sticking it to Jericho, but ensuring that the title match goes down decisively. It's two birds, one stone. Heading into the match at the Royal Rumble, Chris Jericho was given an opportunity to win the title he's never won, the United States Championship. What this means is that if Jericho wins, he's finally a Grand Slam champion. With the help of Kevin Owens, who was his tag team partner, I might add, Chris Jericho captured the United States Championship. For such a historic moment, why was the crowd so silent? I was confused when I watched this again. I thought they'd be more excited, but whatever. Oh, and if that title match wasn't enough in wearing down Roman, Owens powerbombed him through the announce table the following week. The funny part about this is the fact that the fans were chanting, yes, 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 which, once again, you gotta laugh out of me because that's how much they hated Roman back then. Anyways, on the final Raw before the Rumble, Roman and Kevin confronted one another. Now, context. Roman, he was finally excited to get his hands on Kevin Owens without the worry of Chris Jericho, because he's going to be locked in the shark cage. KO and his best friend came out and he said that Roman sounds pretty delusional thinking he's capturing the title. He attributed this to Roman receiving a powerbomb through the announce table. Owens believed that putting Reigns through that table is one hell of an accomplishment. Roman himself was ready to square up, and he was actually confident heading into Sunday. He actually believed that he was going to win the title. As for Jericho, he asked Roman if he thinks he's Nostradamus before straight up calling him a stupid idiot. The tone in his voice and the way he delivered the statement got a laugh out of me. He said that it was hilarious when he took away the title from Roman, and if you watch this segment for the first time, no context, first time you're watching wrestling, I guess, or first time in a long time, you'd think Jericho was the good guy. He said that nothing's stopping him from knocking down those pearly whites and teaching Roman a lesson. Reigns saw this as Jericho challenging him to a rematch, and Y2J was pretty reluctant to accept the challenge. Owens, though, once he heard this, he was confident in Chris's abilities, so he accepted the challenge. This was also a way of softening up Roman Reigns ahead of their title match at the Royal Rumble, and so the match is on. As for how the title match went, Jericho struggled. Roman was in form and KO interfered. He caused the DQ and he called for the shark cage. Roman was on the verge of getting thrown into the cage, but he fought back and threw the champion himself in there, and the cage was raised to the rafters. Jericho tried hanging out to his best friend, but Roman hit the Superman punch, and to be honest, that was cool. He then connected with a spear, and KO watched on in horror. Now, as for the match at Royal Rumble, that damn graphic, what the hell is that? Jericho screaming in the background, and they're just posing. What the hell is going on? Anyways, the match itself was awesome. Jericho was in the air. KO brought out some of the best in Roman Reigns. He tried killing himself and Roman with a frog splash through a table. He hit the most brutal Superman punch with some brass knuckles. And if this happened in 2010, then in storyline it would have gotten him the victory. Kevin received a Samoan drop through a chair. He even hit a stunner. Then to top it all off, this freaking spot. It's like those spots where you don't expect them to hit it. But this time, though, they actually went through with it. And if that wasn't enough, he received a powerbomb through the announce table. Roman had the title in his sights, but Strowman, for some reason, interfered, and he sent him through a table, and KO retained the title. Overall, a fun match. Once again, KO won dirty. They're too scared to give heels clean victories. I don't even know why. But yeah, that's the story of the match. And Strowman interfered because Roman speared him a week earlier. But yes, a match that I initially had fun watching. Roman really stepped up that night, and he just put on a great performance. Following the match, Owens and Jericho celebrated the victory. The duo, though, didn't have enough time to celebrate because Braun Strowman came out, and he reminded Kevin Owens of his promise a month earlier. KO believed that footage was photoshopped, and Strowman threatened to break him. Mick Foley then came on, and he easily resolved this issue. Owens versus Strowman for the title later tonight. The champ tried speaking to Stephanie about this issue, and he tried explaining his problems, and Steph did agree. She questioned Foley's mindset towards this decision, and they ended up arguing. Foley, though, he was hard-headed. He refused to change the match. He convinced her that it's his job to make the matches. As for Kevin Owens, he was still feeling the effects of the match at the Rumble, and he asked for Jericho's help in under-the-radar fashion. Jericho mentioned Owens not being there for him for his match earlier, but Kevin managed to convince him to come out with him for the match. As for the title match, Strowman slammed Jericho through the announce table, and then he walked down the ramp. KO's title reign was flashing before his eyes as the big monster slowly approached the squared circle. Also, is it weird if I say I remember this episode, but not the match itself? Anyways, Owens kissed that title goodbye, presumably, And about the match, yes, Owens received a beating, but he managed to fight back. He took some risks in order to chop down the big tree, but it wasn't he who saved himself. It was Roman Reigns. He brawled with Strowman for a bit, and this left Owens to fight another day. The following week, Kevin Owens came out bragging about being champion, but another challenger knocked on his door. First of all, though, Chris Jericho was complaining about how some guy stole his nickname of the greatest of all time. It was Tom Brady. And since he stole that moniker, he's just made the list. Like, Tom Brady, he's so far out, yet Jericho put him on the list. For all I know, WrestlingPremier might be on the list too. Jericho then shifted his focus to WrestleMania. He believed that there should be a match between himself and Kevin Owens in a champion versus champion match for the main event. And also, the fans certainly wanted to see the match. As for Kevin, he agreed, but he isn't so sure that he could fight his best friend. Enter Goldberg. He came out and he challenged both of them to a handicap match. He mentioned Heyman's challenge for WrestleMania 33 and he accepted the challenge. As for KO, he was so happy that Goldberg accepted the challenge as he believed it was the perfect undercard match for KO Mania 2. Because this right here, Jericho, is the main event. He asked Goldberg if he knows why he's the greatest Universal Champion, and Goldberg believed it was because Owens never faced him. And so he laid the challenge for Fastlane. Y2J chimed in and was about to put Goldberg on the list before he himself took the clipboard and pen and put himself on the list. The fans loudly chanted, "Goldberg," and Jericho took offense to him putting his name on the list. Y2J then said that Goldberg's got a match at Fastlane against Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship. Goldberg celebrated while Owens, he was a bit worried. Goldberg announced that KO and his title are next, and now it was at this moment Jericho screwed up, and it was at this moment in particular that Owens believed his friendship with Jericho was over. Backstage, KO complained to Jericho about this, and he tried to explain this, stating that Owens is capable of keeping that title. He's got his back, and it doesn't matter that he's facing Goldberg because he's the 61-minute man. KO saw this as Jericho not having his back, but despite this, Kevin Owens assisted him in defeating Sami Zayn later that night. After the match, Chris Jericho revealed that he's got something in store for his best friend next week. And seeing as they're such good friends, Y2J has a festival planned for him. A festival of friendship. KO was somewhat ecstatic, and he couldn't wait for the celebration. As for how the fiesta went, first of all, Triple H wanted to speak to KO. The context of this conversation is still unknown to this day. Anyways, the celebration from the introduction was so damn over the top. Y2J was so damn happy to do this for his friend. This kind of reminds you of that SpongeBob episode where SpongeBob threw a surprise party for his friend Patrick. He was playing party host, and his friend KO didn't really want to be there. It seemed like, though. And also, it seemed like Jericho was having more fun. He even brought out Ralph Googleman to make some art. I don't know who the hell he is. He sculpted this awesome thing, which KO didn't seem to understand what it was. Jericho informed us that this is a sign of their friendship, and it only cost $7,000. Then he showed the creation of Kevin, and the moment he revealed this painting, the crowd went crazy. He suggested Kevin Owens hang this in his home, and the champion believed otherwise. But that wasn't it. Jericho then presented Friendship, the Magician, and the fans booed. He did a trick, and Y2J realized that it wasn't impressive, and so Friendship, the Magician, clinched a spot and Chris Jericho's list. I mean, for this one, he should have just brought in Job or something. Y2J then admitted that he found this guy on Craigslist. Next up, Goldberg. Jericho was ready to give him it. And by the looks of it, no pun intended, he stood there the entire commercial break. Or was it just a mistake on the network's part? His music then played and out he came. Goldberg in peak condition. Owens, though, attacked Goldberg and he quickly made work of him. He then questioned Jericho's mindset as he believed this was a way of getting Goldberg out there and jumping him, but it clearly wasn't the case. Chris Jericho, though, did this to honor his friend. He admitted that he had so much fun throughout the last year and it could be mostly attributed to Kevin Owens. His job was so much better with Owens in his life. He then guaranteed Kevin will beat Goldberg because he's got his back. It didn't matter in the past if he faced Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns, he's always there for him. And why is he gonna do this? Because they're best friends. No, scratch that, they're brothers. Owens, though, he seemed overwhelmed. He apologized to Jericho for his behavior and his attitude, and they hugged before Owens revealed that he's actually got a gift for him. When Jericho opened the present, it was a new list. He realized the troubles that Jericho went through in order to have this party, as he had to hire a bunch of people. He had to call Goldberg and have him flown in. He had to take a risk by hiring someone from Craigslist. And Owens also believed that the new gift wasn't enough. But upon showing off the gift, the audience noticed something that Jericho himself didn't. And then he realized that his name was on the list, and he didn't understand why. Like, why is my name on the list? It's sad. Owens then attacked his best friend, Chris Jericho. He destroyed the painting, he whacked him with a list, and to top it all off, Owens hit the apron powerbomb to his now former best friend. But wait, there's more. Owens decided that wasn't enough, and he threw Jericho right into the Jeritron 6500. He then hoisted his title in the air proudly, and even tossed that symbol of friendship sculpture on the mat. Okay, this is one of those masterfully done segments. And the funny part about this is the fact that Vince wasn't even in the arena when this occurred. Jericho, he had to fight for this idea, not just the idea itself, but his vision for this segment. He had to convince Triple H. They went back and forth over it, but he had to convince him that this is the way to do it. Now, what made this segment so special? Let me give you the answer. Chris Jericho broke his back in order to provide a substantial meaning to his friendship with Kevin Owens. It meant the world to him. As for Owens, he was a treacherous, selfish, heartless man. Once Jericho accepted the challenge for him for Fastlane, it was then the friendship ended. Not because of the celebration, it was already set in his mind. And when the whole celebration thing wasn't a way to goad Goldberg into coming out, yeah, he was like, this guy's useless. On the February 20th, 2017 episode of Raw, Kevin Owens came out to address his actions of last week. "You suck" chants were loud and clear in the arena as Owens spoke about why does he think he's retaining the title. He said that he doesn't believe in the hype, and even as a kid, he was never impressed by Goldberg. And sure, he beat Brock Lesnar in a minute, but that only happened because Lesnar took him lightly. KO promised not to take Goldberg lightly, and he had some tactics in his back pocket. He then explained why he's going to beat Goldberg. It's because he's going to outlast him, and the longer a Goldberg match goes, the more it favors the opponent. And in that department, Goldberg doesn't even come close, and it's also because he knows how to play the game unlike anyone else. Hey, Owens claimed that there is nothing he won't do to keep himself as champion. He refused to allow Goldberg to take that title and parade with it like a superhero for his son. He was out to prove that superheroes don't exist, and he could care less if Goldberg comes out and shouts, "You're next," because he knows that Goldberg is nothing. As for Chris Jericho, Kevin Owens left. That's it. He believed that he already did enough to Y2J that it doesn't warrant a verbal statement. Owens, it seemed like he reverted to the 2015 version of himself. The guy that was a prize fighter. Didn't pose or taunt the opponent. He just wanted to win matches for money and for gold. On the final Raw before Fastlane, Kevin Owens confronted his challenger for the Universal Championship. He was excited to see Goldberg. He compared himself to Bill and their promises to their families. He listed his past accomplishments such as beating John Cena, Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, and even Roman Reigns. He informed Goldberg that it doesn't matter how loud these fans chant his name. Goldberg himself is next. The challenger, though, believed that Kevin's speech was wonderful and moving, and despite the speech being entertaining, it did nothing but piss him off. KO, he was ready to fight before realizing that he's in Green Bay. Owens, though, couldn't wait for Fastlane because Bill's chance dies. Anyways, the story of this one, Kevin Owens had his tactic to beat Goldberg, and that's outlast him, and he believed that he was going to use it very effectively. He believed that Goldberg's rusty. He hasn't really competed in 13 years, and so that is his advantage. As for the match, Goldberg did his usual entrance. Owens was composed as hell as he had zero fear, zero doubt in himself, and at this point he held the title for 188 days. He was ready to go. So the bell was about to ring when Kevin Owens decides to exit the ring. The moment he enters it once again, he exits. Then he decides to enter once again and ask for the ref to ring the bell. When Break the Walls Down played. The bell rang, Goldberg hit the spear and then the jackhammer. 1, 2, 3, Goldberg wins. Damn, the title reign ends just like that. Looking back, it's kind of annoying. Why? Because the story of Goldberg and Lesnar didn't necessitate championship gold. It felt like the title needed to be on the KO and Jericho feud because the story was about Y2J always saving Kevin Owens' title. And who better to end the title reign than the guy who continuously saved Kevin Owens? That's what I'm saying. Their feud had so much heat, and I'll get into their match in another video. If this video is successful, I will make it later that week, promise. Anyways, what did you think of this results? Did you break your TV? Did you dance? What did you think? Now, personally, I never got mad at the result because I'm used to WWE doing stuff like this. I had this grin on my face, not because I was happy that Goldberg won, but because a part-timer once again held championship gold. And I wouldn't say they can't make stars. I feel like they can, but they're scared to run off somewhere else. As for Kevin Owens' title reign, I felt like they were lost the moment Finn got injured and they scrambled to do something. It wasn't good as a title reign, but from another perspective, yes, because of the run he had with Chris Jericho, who once again reinvented himself. So yeah, there it is. Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho feud will come later this week if this video is successful. So yeah, that's it for this video. Make sure you hit a code breaker on the like button and perhaps the pop-up power bomb on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.